Good evening, everyone. Happy Wednesday evening, and thank you for joining the Wednesday night prayer gathering. Hold on, let me adjust this microphone. Go figure, it's perfect until I start talking and then it gets all out of alignment. Okay, I think I'll probably sound better now. So let me take a moment. We'll just take a moment and center. And then we'll start. So I thought this evening we can just, I was going to make it sort of simple. And as I was reflecting on guided practices that I've done on previous Wednesday nights, or even throughout the last 2-3 years, I've realized, well, I always knew, but it kind of hit me in a different way, that they were no, I take that back. When I've guided practices, they tended to be sometimes a little more structured and sort of made special because it's Sunday. But it's a little different when you're trying to have more of a regular practice. You kind of, let me change the light in here. Working with the light, and it's throwing off my concentration. One moment. See, as we create a space, we're working with the conditions and trying to, find a formula that works. So I started with my lights dimmed, like I was already in my practice, except I was speaking to you. And that doesn't really work for me. Okay, now I can focus. That's really interesting. Okay. So we work with our conditions to try to create a regular practice. It's a little different than when you do it once or twice a week. So this evening, I wanted to speak about having a more regular practice. Speak about it briefly. In a way, it's more than this, but also it's not. You're clocking in the time. You're making time for it and you're doing it. So normally you do a workout, a cardio for 30 minutes. You have it timed, right? You fit it into your day. Could be a little shorter, a little longer, but it's around that. That's the same for one's prayer practice. Especially as being modern people, we are highly scheduled and we have a lot to do. So what we do is we set a space apart. We find what works for us and we set that time aside and we clock it. It's like punching in, punching out. The important part is to punch in, to do it. When you punch out, that's kind of up to you and it could change from day to day. But there should be a sort of a minimum period of time, especially with mantra or sitting practice. There's a certain critical period, especially at the beginning, where you grow. And if it's too short, you're not providing the amount of time to create stability in one's mind and one's focus, and enough of a practice time, in a way, to be able to grow quickly or grow at a good rate. Yes? So what's important is that you invest the time, that you create a space with the right lighting and the right conditions, and you're aware on whether it's working or not for you. So when I started, to give an example, I was doing a lot of sitting meditation. And I said, oh, okay, I'm going to do it at the end of the day before I go to sleep. Well, I would get up at 6, 5:30, go to the gym, go to work. It was a full day by the time 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening came around, and I was too tired. So I tried it for a while, and it just wasn't really working. And then I thought of this. Why do I think it has to be at the end of my day? Do it when I'm still awake and give myself permission to do something afterwards. Doesn't have to be the last thing. At the time, I was doing it in the evenings. So I would do it right after dinner. When I was still awake and had a lot of energy, 30, 40 minutes. And then afterwards, I did other things. But because I put it when I had energy, it occurred. It happened. And then sometimes it would go into the rest of my evening, or I would read books and learn and deepen. And it became a very beautiful thing. Many years later, it ended up being first thing in the morning. Started realizing I'm much better in the morning, and it would honestly be around 4:45 in the morning when I would start, so I can get off to the gym by 6:15. And I looked forward to it. And I actually didn't want to go to work because I wanted to continue. So one develops a habit, one develops a routine, especially if you're doing mantras, you're doing a sitting practice. So I'm more speaking to that. If you wish just, to pray to God, it doesn't have to be that long. I say a prayer right before going to sleep every night. And I don't necessarily need to be in front of my prayer space. I don't need to be in a chair. I don't need to be kneeling. I could be lying down in bed. It really doesn't matter. It's taking that moment and I say to God, thank you for a beautiful day. Thank you for today. Even if the day hasn't been so nice. Because there always is something nice about the day, and I give thanks for that. Not taking anything for granted. And realizing things could be worse. Or if things are great, wow, thank you for a nice day. And that's it. A touching in. Or it could be more elaborate. What we're developing here is the skill to have that connection with God, with the Shekhinah, that alignment of frequency. And there's a retuning. We have to tune ourselves. We have to adjust our frequency, and we have to start tapping into things that we have never really tapped into before. And we need to develop skills on how to do it. So hopefully I've provided a lot of skills, a lot of techniques and guidance, but it's really a manual. Hopefully from A to Z, beginning, intermediate, I've gotten to some advanced things. But it's for us to walk the walk, to put in the time so it all connects. And so what's important is really to clock in the time. A little time every day, even if you only have 10, 15 minutes squeezed in somewhere. And it could literally be sitting in a chair. Doesn't have to have anything lit in front of you, and you go inward. You can close your eyes and you can do a mantra practice there, or just do a steadying your mind, a prayer to God. It doesn't have to be much. Now, if you have your prayer space and you can be in front of it, that really helps. There's a real connection that occurs. I personally find the Aleph to be a really, really strong visual that helps me feel that connection with God through my eyesight. I have it on the face of my cell phone, which sometimes is on and sometimes it's in the back wallpaper and sometimes it's not on, depending on the environment I'm in. But it's there. It blesses my cell phone. It blesses me when I see it on the cover. Reminds me of God's presence. These are all these little things that one can do to maintain that link. And also, I hope it blesses my digital space, my cell phone, that God is there and I kind of carry him with me in a way. My connection with him, my allegiance to him. And that's really what we're doing, is we're establishing a connection. And like riding a bike or learning to swim, it takes a little time. And it's not easy at the beginning. But as one does it, one really begins to enjoy it. And one realizes, oh, yes, I always saw that. This is why I wanted to do this, to hope one day I can become like those people I saw. And boy, did they enjoy it. Boy, did they look forward to it. And so you start with the aspiration, you aspire, you wish, you try to have a similar experience or connection as someone you saw, or how you would like it to be for you. You have your own inspiration. And so with time, as you do it, the benefits materialize. The attainment begins to manifest, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so great. And then there's much less effort. Then there is no effort. You look forward to those 30 minutes. You make it longer sometimes. You realize there's not enough time in the evening, so you move it to the morning and you make time when normally you'd be asleep, and you cut back on your Netflix time in the evening. So you go to bed early so you have more time in the morning, and there's no sacrifice at all. You wish you had done it sooner. So things begin to change. One's emphasis in life changes. you start walking in a deeper way, a spiritual, religious path, and you're like, wow. And so you make it more of your life. Now, you don't have to. I'm just giving encouragement to, if it does feel a little challenging at the beginning. If one chooses, to spend more time trying to establish a regular prayer practice, it gets easier. And so it's really about clocking it in. Find the time, set the time, and spend that much of time. So I would recommend no less than 20 minutes. If you're doing a meditation or a mantra, or, honestly, no more less than 20 minutes if you can. At least, 3-4 times a week, if not more. And that could involve reading a passage from scripture. It could be a lot of things. But to having that time just focused on your connection, your spirituality, is important. It's retuning ourselves. We're reshaping ourselves. We're reconnecting ourselves. And it's trying to think of an example. It's we're remolding ourselves. There's a change that occurs, and it takes, like a cake in the oven. You need to bake a little bit for the changes to occur, for the connection, for realizing that the leap of faith you're making to try was correct. Putting doubt aside was a correct move to do. So this evening, I just thought we would do it really nice and easy, where just going to take a little time to pray. Let's just do it no more than 25 minutes. Yes? I'm going to, why don't we continue with the name of God that ends Eloheinu, our God. Continue that devotion. But why don't you add the name of God that you use specifically yourself? You can continue with Abba Eloheinu like we've been doing. You can make it Hashem Eloheinu, Adonai Eloheinu, Elohim Eloheinu, Emmanuel Eloheinu, El Shaddai Eloheinu. Yes? I'll use my name. I use Yahweh Eloheinu. It deepens one practice with the name where one has a deeper affinity and connection. And it helps empower the name that you're using. If you like the effect you have with Abba, then stick with it. You learn a different vibration and how it is. If you wish to go back to your name, that's great. If there's a name you're working on because you haven't quite felt the oomph of a name, I would go back to the name you've been working with, because that's putting in more time with that name in a slightly different way, because the last word is different. But that'll help unlock it a little more. It's all about restoring a connection. It's what makes the name so powerful. The blessing, the frequency, the vibration, how it helps still our minds, puts a frequency and vibration in our bodies. We're working on so many different levels to attain a result, not just one or two. That's why it makes this practice so powerful. So why don't we light our shrines? I'm going to put the names up on the screen. I like starting with the Shema. So it's sort of a declaration of faith. So for those who are relatively new, let me quickly explain the words. Hear, O Israel. This does not mean the country. Israel can mean different things. This means, in this context, all those who believe in God. So we're saying, hear everyone who believes in God. And here comes the profession of faith. Adonai is our God. Adonai is one. Adonai is one means monotheism. There's only one God. Many different names to call him, but they're all the names, different names of the same God. And Adonai happens to be one of them. So it's a profession of faith. It's what sets historically Judaism aside. It was the first monotheistic religion on the planet. So it's naming a name of God and saying he's the only God, which was very revolutionary at the time. So it's a prayer that contains great blessing. And I invite anyone to say it, to tap into that blessing. It's not an exclusive club to be able to say this. It's offered to anyone. And I start with it because it sort of kind of connects the line. You prepare, you lift up the incense, you light the candle. That's all a connection. You're connecting, you're praying. And then you're seated, and then you say that. And that's sort of like when the full body of the practice begins. And before you start, if there's an intention or you wish to have a special focus, you could say that before the Shema. You take that little moment to have that inner connection, then you say the Shema, and then the main part of your practice begins. But I would say that the practice begins when you have the intent to even start your practice. You're in the house, you're like, oh, I'm going to go practice now. That's pretty much, I think, when it starts, when you start making the first steps to doing it. And lighting the candle is part of the practice. You do it mindfully. You do it in prayer. You might bow slightly as you approach your prayer space, recognizing that you've created a sacred space. That increases the power of the space, believe it or not. Psychologically, it definitely changes how you perceive the space. So has the space changed? Has your interaction towards the space changed, and therefore you feel the space is different? I would say it's both. You create an environment that nurtures, that cradles you, that creates that holy space. And you offer up the incense, again, above your head, offering up to God. Or if you're not religious, you offer it up to the universe or to your higher self, a desire to become better, to grow. The creation in this space and in your room or where you have it is real. So I've said this story before, but it was a little while ago. I used to have my prayer space in its own room. Before I went into the room, I would bow, then enter the room, and then do my practice. I would never go in there with shoes or even little, house or apartment little shoes things. I would either be barefoot or in my socks. Yes, during the summer, I'd be barefoot. In the winter, it was a little too cold, so I put on my socks. But there was nothing with a soul in the room. And after doing this for a couple of weeks, a month or two, once I crossed the threshold of the door and I felt I crossed an energy wall. I'm like, whoa, what was that? So I turned around and walked out the room and I felt it again. Then I turned around and walked back into the room and I felt it again. And I realized by treating the space reverently, by bowing to it, the practice, love, and devotion that I put into my practice had actually created an energy in the room. It had literally become a sacred space. And I honored it. And if when I wasn't practicing, the door tended to be shut or open. But if I ever had somebody else, a guest in the apartment, the door was shut. Nobody else was permitted in there. And if I showed it to someone, they were not allowed to walk in. I had created a space. There was the world. There was my work, my friends, going out. There was my apartment, eating, sleeping, showering. And then there was that place reserved for my relationship with God. So in a way, when we create a time in our day, when we create even a little spot, right now it's just a little spot in my bedroom next to my drawers. So don't think it has to be this big thing for it to work. I'm not working with a lot of space right now. So but you have it. And the connection is there. You've physically taken and made some room for it. And with time, in your heart, in your mind, you invest time to become proficient, and you have a physical space. Yes, so let's light our shrine, and we could say the Shema together in a moment. So we'll go for about 25 minutes. So 7:55. Oh, I want to say one more thing. If you have a certain amount of time, look at your clock or set a timer and stick for that time. It's hard to. But by doing that, you kind of push yourself a little bit. And then it'll be very easy to stick for that time. Now, if that day there's too many obstacles and it's just really hard, then don't. You don't want this to become work. It'll turn you off. So it's not too tight, too much discipline, too pushing, or too loose. Oh, I'll do it tomorrow, whatever. Oh, 5 minutes, 10, oh, wow, oh. That doesn't get you anywhere either. So it's really going and establishing a flow. Know when to do a little more or a little less. And there's so many different choices of things. You could mix it up in one practice. So the importance is to log in the time. Okay. You ready? So traditionally, when you say the Shema, you put your right hand over your face with the top of the fingers facing the crown and the palm facing the bottom, and it's sort of over your nose and a little bit your third eye in the middle of your face. I'll describe that why another time, but that's kind of normally what you do, and it helps you in part to turn your intention inwards. The prayer is an inward prayer. You connect as you say it. It really helps the prayer very much come from you and resonate with us. Okay. Shema Israel Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Eloheinu. take a couple minutes if to sort of wind down from your practice. So just rest a little still and stare at your prayer space and have that resonance with it if you haven't been doing that before.